What is good, everybody? It's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again on today's episode of the Windy City Breeze. We're going to be breaking down how Matt Eberflus performed this season as a first-time head coach. What did we like? What did we dislike from him? And then, do we expect him to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears when they finally see success? Let's talk about it, starting now. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel talking Chicago sports, how Chicago talks, so make sure that you get in tune with us, man. So listen, Week 17 coming up, right? Justin Fields not going to play. A lot of the starters not going to play for the most part. What we expected to see from this Bears team is all set in stone. Like we pretty much know what this team is going to be at this point. We know how this season is going to end, whether they win or lose versus the Vikings, right? Maybe we see some moral victory at the end of this Vikings game, but at this point, right, you're locked in at a top 4 pick. You're one of the worst teams in the NFL. You did see progression from your team offensively. You saw your team be able to move the ball. You saw regression from your team defensively. Based on some moves being made, maybe some coaching decisions, right? And so I really want to break down what we saw from Flus this season and talk about kind of like, will he be the head coach of this Bears team when it's all said and done? When we finally hopefully get to that promised land with Justin Fields, when we're standing there holding the Lombardi trophy and Justin Fields is holding it up, who will be the head coach standing next to him, right? Because I think we saw some really good things here from Flus this season as his first year, right? He's establishing a culture. He's establishing a leadership. I think we have, it very much feels like going from Trestman to John Fox, right? Not to say that I think that this will end how John Fox's era did, but it's very much like going from Trestman to John Fox, where it felt like there was no system in place, there were no adjustments in place, there was nobody that could establish an NFL identity, right? Like you literally just looked at the team and you were like, wow, they're not good at anything on the field. To now, it feels like, right, like even if the Bears are losing, even if they do have this top pick, it does feel like most weeks that this Bears team, when you're sitting there looking at them week in and week out, had an offensive identity, had Justin Fields in place, had things that were working in their favor, had things that they were that close from being able to take that next step. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, right? How are you going to be able to take that next step? And I think you've got some pieces in place for that. And so I look at Flus right now. For me, I'm looking at him on the development of young players on this team. That's something we did not see under Matt Nagy, right? A ton of young players came in here. I mean, I guess if we want to give him credit for Roquan Smith becoming the player that he is, I don't know if I feel that way, right? Excuse me. I don't know if I believe that he's the reason that Roquan Smith became Roquan Smith. But you got some really nice players in here who have developed under him in their first year, right? Of course, Justin Fields with the addition of bringing in Luke Getsy. On Flus has really improved his game. He's running more of a system that's kind of working in his favor. I think that was a work in progress as well this season. Because remember, right, these guys are all first timers outside of Allen Williams. Flus has never been a head coach. Getsy's never been an OC. So you're going with that development of everybody as well. So I think that, right, when you talk about the development of young players, you have to look at him and say, hey, I feel like you did a really good job there. A lot of these rookies came in. Now Braxton Jones has had a very up and down season, but even with that, I feel like Braxton Jones has shown some development under Coach Flus. I think that he is going to be a part of this offensive line for a long time. I don't know if he'll always be our left tackle of the future, but I think that he will be a part of this offensive line for a long time, and he will continue to grow in this system, and the Bears will like what they see from him for a long time. I think when you look at the defensive side of the ball, right, you have to look at Jaquan Brisker. Jaquan Brisker feels like kind of like the Roquan Smith effect, where you see it immediately. He comes on the field, he has instant talent. But I also look at how Kyler Gordon started this season and what he got to this season, right? Kyler Gordon was not good at the beginning of the season. Kyler Gordon was somebody we looked at and we were like, hey, that might not be a good pick. That might not be a good pickup. I kind of am, especially with your first pick in the draft, right? Like that's a problem that he looks this bad, to the point where he started to develop. He started to turn his game around. He started to, and all while not having a defensive line in front of him, right? He started to be a little bit better on an island. He started to be a little bit better in the zone, you know. I love to see that growth from a guy who you can literally visibly see week by week his game continuing to grow. I think that's kind of where I look at Flus and I say, hey, listen, you absolutely deserve credit for this young man here. He has balled his butt out. And so when you look at how does a coach develop their young talent, I love that from Flus. I think that that's something very important that you have to key in on. And if I were to evaluate a head coach's first season here, win or lose, right, I'm going to take a lot of things into account. I'm going to take the young talent that he had on the field, and I'm going to take the veteran pieces that he had on the field and say, okay, what was the mix like? How did this play out? And the mix was all young guys, right? The mix was all guys that had to get it together very quickly on the field. And I think we saw more of the young guys that we have expectation from, right? I think there were some guys there as well, like Dominique Robinson. He was up and down this season. He had one really good game, but he was very up and down. But I think when you have to take into account, right, how were these young guys playing? How were they developing? How are they growing? And I think that we saw a lot of that. And that's what gives Bears fans hope moving forward here. That you went out there and you saw a lot of these young guys developing and growing and building that rapport, building up that consistency this season. That's stuff we didn't see under Matt Nagy, man. I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. Do you believe that Flus did a good job with developing these young guys? How do you feel about his job that he's done as a head coach this first year? I'll be down to talk with you as well, man, as always. I think the other thing to key in on with where Flus is and how we feel like he did in this first year is also the fact that the team had a drastic change on him, because I know there's a lot of people that want to say, right, like, hey, he's a defensive-minded head coach. He should be doing more defensively. There's no way that his defense should look like it does. And I will say this defense looks awful. I see some people saying this is the worst defense of my lifetime. I don't know about that. I don't know if y'all remember the Mel Tucker defense. That was a pretty god-awful defense. So I don't know if this is the worst defense of my lifetime, but this is a pretty bad defense. But when I look at it, right, I also understand, okay, you lost Eddie Jackson for the season. You traded away Roquan Smith. You got rid of Robert Quinn. You moved on from some pivotal pieces on this defense that at the end of the day, right, like there were emotions wrapped around guys that were here. There were a lot of results wrapped around guys that were here. And then your backups to those guys that you felt like, okay, this guy's going to be able to make a nice step, right? The Jack Sanborns of the world who were showing really good instinct, really good flashes in his rookie season. Another undrafted guy that I think developed really well under Coach Flus. He ends up going on IR for the rest of the season and finishing out the season kind of trying to get his game together, right? Trying to get his body back together, right? So those are big losses to your team. Those are key losses to your team and where this defense is. And so even with that, right, like I look at Alan Williams, I do have a lot of questions around Alan Williams. I've got a lot of questions around him as a DC, how he's going to be. I think that he is good. I think that he puts guys in positions to make plays. I think that there are times where the players that we have don't always hustle hard enough or get to that play to make that play. And we've kind of heard Flus echo that this season. We've heard him echo that sentiment at times where, hey, this play has to happen. That play's there to be made, but he has to be able to get there. He has to be able to run this out. You know what I'm saying? Different things like that. So I love that we're seeing that, and I think that now as we're moving forward, right, like I don't look at the blame of this defense to go on the coaching staff. I think that was a organized, orchestrated, hey, we're not going to be good enough to do anything this season. Let's go get some high draft capital, high draft picks, leverage these so that we can move forward and have a better team this season. I think that was an organizational decision over a Flus decision. And so when I'm looking at the grade on the defense, even though Flus is a defensive-minded head coach, of course, the grade's not going going to be good on what the defense is, but I don't know if I can put that on Flus this season. I'm not going to hold that against him. The other thing for me, I listen, the defensive grade, I mean, it's an F. It is a god-awful defense. It is. They look awful right now, but there's an understanding of why they look awful. But on the flip side of that, right, I think that you also have to give Flus credit for the development of the team on the offensive side and on the mental side with this team, right? Like he's kind of been the stability, at least in this first season, that the Bears team needed. Has it gotten off to the start we wanted? No. But I think that there's that mental stability where he's talking about constantly having conversations with Justin about the losing that's happening here in Chicago. Justin's losing a lot. That hurts you a lot, right? So on the side where, yeah, on the coaching aspect of the play on the field, we believe we have subpar talent. Maybe we've overachieved in some games, and I think we absolutely have. But how are you keeping the locker room intact, right? Because these are the seasons where you lose a locker room. These are the seasons where you lose the guys that are playing around you, where you're 3-14 or hope that's probably what we'll end at. 3-14. I think we're 3-13 right now. You're one of the worst teams in the NFL. Your quarterback could have some issues. I mean, we're seeing that around the NFL with teams that are better than this, right? With teams that are better than the Bears. They got issues out in Arizona with their quarterback speaking out about the plays that are going down and how the game is being called. They had issues in Cleveland with Baker on how plays were being called and how things were going down there, right? Like, and they were in winning situations. These are the types of seasons where you can lose your locker room. And I think that on the mental side, he's really been a stabilizing block for the Chicago Bears in this. And that's something to really hang his hat on. That's something to really look at and say, hey, that is an amazing aspect that you've been able to kind of keep this ship even keel. And so now, right, like, I have to give him credit, a feather in his cap on that. Does it change the fact that you're losing a ton on the field? No, it doesn't. Do I want him to be a soundboard for his entire time here? No, absolutely not. But I think, right, there was an organizational decision made that, hey, we're going to suck this year no matter what. Okay, we're going to suck this year. What does that mean for these players moving forward? Well, that means they're probably going to lose a lot this season. There's going to be a lot of issues. There's going to be a lot of rocky times this season. You saw the blow up with Claypool on the sideline. That's not something that they just let go, right? And I think that that's something that organizational stability, even in something like that, right? Chase Claypool blows up on the sideline. He's upset. He's visibly frustrated. He's coming from a situation where it was bad, but maybe it wasn't this bad, right? And he's been in better situations than years before. And Claypool talked about how he just didn't want it to feel like it's okay for us to keep going 3-and-out, even if we are a bad team. This is not okay what we're seeing. And Flus respected that. Justin respected that. But instantly, you saw the maturity happen, right? You saw the boom. Hey, I got to talk to this guy. We got to have a conversation with this guy. Not to say that that's not okay. Not to say don't show the emotion, but to say you have to understand how to harness that emotion and put that to something that can affect the game in a positive way. Those are the kind of things I like to hear that my head coach is doing. Those are the kind of things that I like to hear that my quarterback is doing. I feel like we've heard that a ton this season from Flus. So a feather in his cap. I mean, here's the thing at the end of the day. Will Flus be the head coach of the Chicago Bears when the Bears are finally in a winning situation? I think that things will start to turn next season for the Bears. I don't think that we'll all of a sudden be a Super Bowl team, right? That'd be fun to see. But I do think that things will start to turn next season for the Chicago Bears. I think they'll start to move in the right direction for us. I don't think the draft capital fixes that, but I think you got a lot of money to bring some players in here that probably will want to be here to play with Justin Fields. I know Pete Kidd dropped that video talking about kind of like, is he going to have that Lamar Jackson effect where certain guys won't want to play with him because his best skill set takes away from their game. I don't believe that that's the case here in Chicago. I think that a lot of people look at Justin Fields as this, hey, get this guy some help, and maybe they feel like they can be that help with Justin. But will he be the head coach when it's all said and done, when the Bears get to a point where they are a playoff team again, a perennial playoff team again, a serious threat in the playoffs? Will Coach Flus be the head coach of that team? It's a two-part answer for me, right? One, there are coaches that are available right now that I think you have to do your due diligence in speaking with, right? I think that you have to, right? Sean Payton is available. Not to say that he wants to come here, but we know Sean Payton wants to work with a quarterback that's already in a situation where he can continue to groom that guy, grow that guy, be successful. Sean Payton has talked about having a star-studded staff already put together. Vic Fangio, I believe, is the DC on that staff and a part of that staff, so we know what he can do for a defense here firsthand. I think that it would be I believe that it would be a what's the right way to say it? A lack of, I'm trying to think of the right word here. A lack of focus on your job, kind of like a lack of acceptance of your role, I guess. I'm saying this the wrong way, right? Clearly. Excuse me. Basically, right, like a lack of due diligence. That's the word I think I was looking for when you're doing your job. If you're not making those calls to guys that you feel like could bring the best level of talent to your team. I liken it to the Golden State Warriors, right? When they went and got Steve Kerr. It wasn't just about going to get Steve Kerr. It was about the fact that your owner was willing to open his wallet to say, go build the best coaching staff in the world, not a bunch of guys that you like, not a bunch of guys that are your friends. So I think that if those opportunities come, you do have to make calls like that. This season, it happens to be an opportunity. It's Fluce's first season. I don't think the Bears will move away from him in his first season, but I would like to know that they've at least had conversations about, hey, this guy's out here. Could we make this move? Because, again, it's about what's best for the Chicago Bears, not what's best for our feeling. Now, on the feeling side, on the part that I like, on the part that I'm looking at, I think Flus is a good coach. I do. I think he's a good head coach. I think he's done some really good things for the Bears. I don't know if he's our right Rick Renteria for the Cubs or for the White Sox, I guess, in that matter, even though it didn't work out. Our Tony La Russa, as it were, even more so, right? I don't know if he's that guy for the Bears, just the bridge guy that gets you to that next step. I don't know if I believe that. I think that he can do some good things here. I think that there's a lot of growth that comes here. I think that there's a lot of stability that comes from having a head coach here. I think that you don't want to have your quarterback starting over with another coach so soon. And I'm talking about, I mean, when you're talking about, right, switching a head coach, you're probably talking about within 2 or 3 years, because you're going to know whether this guy's going to be the guy that's going to get you over the hump based on how your team is playing by year 2 or 3. Do I think that there's an opportunity to go out there and get a better head coach now? Yeah, listen, there's Hall of Famers that are available this year at the coaching position. But do I think that that's the move that the Bears will make? I don't. And I think that there's a lot of winning that will come with Coach Flus being the head coach of this team. Do I think that he'll be the coach when the Bears are hopefully holding up the Lombardi Trophy, or at least competing for the Lombardi Trophy? That part I don't believe. I hope so. I really like Flus. I really like what he's brought to this team. I really like the hard work mentality that he brings to this team. But I think at the end of the day, I would need to see a lot more of a jump. Now, I also need to see what he's going to be able to do with talent, but I would need to see a lot more of a jump in this team motivationally, in this team as a whole, right? Like, we always hear about the attention to detail, but then we talk about week in and week out how they miss the attention to detail. You know what I'm saying? Like, different things like that. And yes, that does come with subpar talent, but at the end of the day, you have to get that subpar talent to pay attention to the detail. And maybe there's just not enough guys on the team that do. So I think that plays into it as well. Do I think that he'll be the head coach of this team by the time we're talking about championship? I don't. I think that you'll have to go out and find you a head coach that's kind of done that before, taking that journey before, going down that path before. But hopefully I'm wrong. I love Flus. I think that I like the hire. I like that Poles had the balls to go out and hire a guy like that, and that he's gonna make that guy work. I love that, and hopefully we can continue to see that happen, man. But hey, I do want to know how you guys feel, man. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down to talk with you as well. What do you think about Coach Flus's first time job as a head coach? Do you like the job that he's done? Do you dislike the job that he's done? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys, man. As always, it's your boy Pat the Designer, back at it again to continue watching our Chicago Bears content. Click the links on the screen or check the links in the description below. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Peace.